Well, I think leaders, they have they have people for whom they are responsible. They have people whom they are leading. That is the very nature of the definition of a leader. And as a leader, you have to persuade people about, to do what it is you want them to do. I think you also have to inspire them and motivate them and get them to believe in the value of what they're doing. And so you look at leaders of companies today who are, whether they're multinationals or mid-sized companies or even small companies, I would think that they would want to inspire, motivate, persuade their employees to do a great job for the benefit of the company, but also for their own benefit. I think most leaders know the importance of good communication skills. I think the persuasion on my part comes in the how, in trying to get them to let go of the text-heavy slides, in trying to get them to maybe, tell a personal story as part of the overall presentation. I think that's where there's more persuasion coming from my part. I know I've seen, and I suspect you've seen as well, so many business presentations which are just facts, data, and they see this all the time, and so they think, well, this must be how it's done. But the reality is that there's no rule that says it has to be all data. In fact, if it's only data, the speaker would have saved everybody a lot of time by just turning the slides into a PDF and emailing them, because people can't absorb and retain too many things at one time. They're going to need to go away, they're going to need to read more about it, think about it. But the point of a presentation isn't to flood people with as much information as possible. It's to get them to remember a few key points. And then they can go away and do further research and reading on their own.
I remember one time when my boss was going to inform us about an organizational change. And I could see when he started his PowerPoint presentation that he had 80 slides. And after slide number 4, people just started reading what was on the PowerPoint slide and stopped listening to him because all the information was there.
Yeah, and I tell people, I say, look, if you put a slide that is full of text and information and 3 graphs or whatever, you force your audience to make a choice. Either I'm going to listen to you and not look at the slide, or what is more likely to happen, I'm going to look at the slide and then start reading. Then the speaker has a second problem, because people are going to be reading different things at different times. The methodical readers are going to start at the top and work their way down. The fast readers are already 2 bullet points ahead. The visual people are looking at the chart, and we're all over the place. It's interesting you said he had 80 slides. I'm not opposed to having a lot of slides in a deck. In fact, one of the questions people will ask me, they say, I've got half an hour to speak or an hour to speak, how many slides should I use? I always say, my answer is always the same. I don't know, maybe 10, maybe 50, maybe 17. The number of slides is less important than the fact that each slide should be well designed. So you could easily have a 40-slide presentation, 40 slides in a 20-minute presentation, if the slides are well designed and they help move the presentation along. Unfortunately, what you usually get is the worst of both worlds. You get a lot of slides poorly designed, and so that's not great.
Yes, I became nervous because I knew that there was going to be a lot of information on each slide.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people will tell me, they say, yes, but I hand out the slides at the end so that people have a takeaway document. And I will ask them, I say, so everything I need to know is in the slides. And they say, yeah, it's all there. And I say, that's fantastic. Why do I need you then? I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's a sincere question. If everything's in the slides, like I said, make it a PDF. People can read faster than you can speak. But if you use the slides as a clean support tool for a message that you want to share with me, then I'm in. Then I want to hear what you have to say. A good rule of thumb for slides that I tell clients is that most slides should be like the sign beside the autoroute or the highway. You're driving along at 120 kilometers an hour, and there's a sign coming up that says how long to the next gas station and where the next exit is, that kind of thing. When you're driving at 120, 130 kilometers an hour, how long do you have to look at the slide, at the sign? 3, maybe 4 seconds? You get the information, then you have to get back to the road, otherwise it's dangerous. And I think that's the way it should be with most slides. For most slides, I should be able to look up and in a couple seconds get the idea and then get back to the speaker. You can have a complex slide from time to time if you, number one, you bring in elements using a simple animation, bring in elements one at a time. And number two, that you spend the adequate amount of time on that slide so that people can absorb what you're saying.
So what I hear you say, John, is help them focus on you. Because
Exactly.
otherwise their attention is going to compete between the slide and you as a speaker.
Exactly. The slide is ancillary. The slide is secondary. You as the speaker are the most important thing there.
Is manipulation related to persuasion?
It is related. And it's funny, I was doing a training yesterday and I got the question about, when we were talking about the use of emotion, the question was, well, isn't this just manipulating your audience? And I said, here's the way I think about it, the difference between persuasion and manipulation. Persuasion is about getting the audience to do something that is good for them, that is in their interest, or that is in the general interest of society, for example, something positive. And there can be also a benefit for the speaker. There's nothing wrong with a mutual benefit situation, a win-win situation. I think manipulation, I think of that as you're trying to get the audience to do something that is either against their interests or that is a bad thing to do. I mean, politicians, unfortunately, they manipulate people all the time. Not all politicians. Politicians also persuade, but that's an example where you can see manipulation. So there's clear overlap because with both persuasion and manipulation, you're trying to get other people to do something. The question is, what's the end result? What's the benefit or the detriment that occurs? That's how I think about it.
Then intention plays a major role.
In my opinion, a huge role, huge.
What is the intention?
Exactly. Businesses who have to sell a product or a service, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, if they don't sell their products or services, they're not going to be in business for very long. The question is, are their products good quality products? Have they been sourced in a sustainable way? Are they respecting labor laws? That kind of thing.
If we try to understand the basic of persuasion, where does it begin? Is it a mindset? Is it a skill? Is it deeper than that?
I think it's a couple of things. I think belief plays a big role in it. First, belief in yourself, belief in the idea that you are selling as well. Many times people will say to me, how do I give a presentation about an idea I don't believe in? And I'm always honest with them. I say, it's not easy. It's not easy. Beyond that, then we get into the different techniques of persuasion, and we go back 2,300 years to ancient Greece and Aristotle and rhetoric and the whole basis of persuasion, logos, ethos, and pathos. And for people who don't know what these things are, even if you've never heard these terms, you know instinctively what they are. Logos essentially is persuasion by logic. It's things like the coherence of your presentation, facts, statistics, data, very left brain thinking. I'm a lawyer by training, so I'm very logos oriented. Everything has to be very structured and clear for me. The second pillar, ethos, is persuasion by virtue of the speaker's personal credibility. Things like the person's reputation, authority, expertise, that kind of thing, that can help influence. Also, part of ethos, these things I mentioned, reputation, authority, expertise, you build these up by living your life, by going through your career. And if you're junior in your career, there's a chance that you're not going to have as much reputation or authority as somebody more senior. And that's just life. You build it up over time. But you can also have an influence on your own ethos as seen by the audience by your stage presence. Are you looking at people? Are you pausing? Are you doing all of these nice gestures on stage and not, you're not looking down, you're not staring at the slides? That makes a difference as well. So there's logos, ethos, and then the third pillar is pathos. Interesting word, comes from the Greek word related to both emotion and suffering. And so we get words today in English and other languages like sympathy, empathy, pathology, pathogen. All of these relate to pathos, which is persuasion by emotion, storytelling, humor, surprise, that kind of thing. So those are the three main pillars. There's a fourth pillar, though, which I think is important and it's less well known. It's called kairos. Kairos is an interesting word. The Greeks have two words for the concept of time. There's chronos, and we get words like chronology or chronological from chronos, which is the time we're most familiar with. The time of, the day, the hours going by in a day, or the months going by in a year. But then there's this second concept of time, kairos, which means the appropriate time, the right time to make an argument, the right time to sell an idea, and also the right time to use emotion, the right time to use facts and logic. So all of this plays a role in persuasion.
That's very interesting. So timing is also important.
Sure. You often see, an event might happen. Let's say there's, a severe drought or flooding or an unexpected weather event, and people who are very concerned about global warming and climate change, they might think, well, in light of what has just happened, now is a good time once again to remind people about the importance of taking certain steps to help reduce the impact of global warming.
Do you need all four to be influential, or can you get away with one or two?
No, I think you need them all. I mean, obviously kairos underpins everything. You want to bring the right argument forth at the right time. Then you've got the other three pillars, the logic, the credibility, and the emotion. And the way I like to think of those three is as follows. I want my credibility in the eyes of the audience to be as high as possible. I want them to think he knows what he's talking about. He's really thinking about what might be valuable to me, and he's going to give me some value for my time. I want it to be as high as possible. The logic, the logos, and the pathos, the emotion, these are more variable. You want, depending on who the audience is, what you're talking about, what the situation is, you're going to want to use more of one and less of the other. In the typical business presentation, you are almost always going to have more logic, more logos than pathos. And that's fine, but don't leave the emotion out altogether. Because, people should be excited. If you're selling a new product or service, there should be some level of emotion there. You can tap into emotion. It's like a recipe. You want to have the ingredients in the right amounts, and that's what really makes the best impact.
When I hear you say storytelling, emotion is important, even in business presentations.
Storytelling is huge, and it still surprises me how little it is used. It's being used more these days than it was, but there's still so much more potential for it. And the reason is that stories are something that are fundamental to the human experience. I mean, stories have been around for thousands of years. They've been around a lot longer than PowerPoint and Excel and all these things we use today. And there have been tests that have been done. I read about a test, I think it was conducted by Stanford University and The Economist, the magazine The Economist, and they put people. First of all, they put people in fMRI imaging, and they studied the brain when the person was listening to a story. And when we hear a story, different parts of the brain light up. The amygdala, related to emotion, the prefrontal cortex, which is for memory, Wernicke's area, which is for language processing. And then they also did this experiment where they had two groups of people. And group one, they gave them a bunch of facts. Group two, they gave them the same facts, but they packaged them in a story. Group two, the people in group two were able to remember many more of the facts because they could remember the story. And so this is the power of a story. Stories are memorable.
They stick, and it's got to be related to your message as well.
Has to be related, yes. You could tell a nice story, but if it has no relation, then it's just confusing.
The best advice I've received is tell a story and make a point.
Yes, tell a story, make a point. Too often, however, it's maybe one story and then point. It's true. And there's this discussion reminds me of a fantastic article that I read in the Harvard Business Review years ago. It was called The Four Truths of the Storyteller. And it was written by a man named Peter Guber. He's a very successful businessman in the US. And among his companies is one called Mandalay Entertainment. And they've made some big Hollywood movies like 7 Years in Tibet with Brad Pitt or Legend of Sleepy Hollow with Johnny Depp. And this article caught my attention because in it, the author talks about how people in business, in companies, organizations, people like you and me, how we can use storytelling techniques from Hollywood in a business presentation. And very simply, he said, for a story to make a real impact, there have to be four truths, four things that are true about it. Number one is truth to the speaker, which means you as a speaker have to feel something for the story. It has to mean something to you, which is why personal stories are so great, because they're part of who we are. The second truth is truth to the audience. There's got to be something in your story that if I'm in the audience, I can take and apply in my life. For example, companies hire people who have done amazing things like, I don't know, maybe they've climbed Mount Everest. They bring them in and they give a talk about their climbing Mount Everest. Well, how many people from the company do you think are going to go climb Mount Everest afterwards? I'm guessing zero. That's my guess. So why bring the person in? Well, maybe there's something in her story about teamwork or something in her story about resilience in the face of challenges. That's truth to the audience. The third one is truth to the moment, which means you tell the right story in the right amount of detail at the right time. So people sometimes like to tell a story which goes on and on and on. You got to be able to keep it tight as well and condensed for the situation. And then the fourth truth is what he calls truth to the mission. How does this story help the audience move towards the mission, the objective that you have set for them, which brings us all the way back to this idea of persuasion.
These four steps are important because when I hear them, I think about emotionally connecting with the audience, with your listeners.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. This is emotional connection. And emotional connection is really important, especially when you're trying to sell an idea. When you're selling an idea, you're selling it on two levels. You're selling it in the head, and you're also selling it in the heart. And if I'm pitching an idea, let's say I'm pitching to you, I'd like you to invest, I don't know, €500,000 francs, €500,000 in my idea, and I've got 10 minutes to pitch you. The chances that you are going to invest after my 10 minutes are essentially zero. You're going to want to think about it. You're going to want to do some research. You're going to want to read the prospectus, all of these things, and that's fine. But in those 10 minutes, I have a chance to get you excited about my idea, to get you interested, to get you to want to know more. Was it Daniel Kahneman? I think it was Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize winner who wrote Thinking Fast and Slow.
Yes.
He said when it comes to purchasing, people buy on emotion and then they justify with logic.